Thank you for all the work that you've done on the Koozer-Kuhn bill. I'm honored that my wife's name is on that bill. Like Bernie, I'm also a graduate of Vanderbilt, a long time ago. It was a lot easier to get in back then. I finished in '65, and I never encountered marijuana when I was here. I think I was just a year or two early. I learned later that there were two cliques or groups on campus that were smoking pot, the juxtaposition of which is still kind of amusing. The football players and the theater crowd. Kind of ironic now that those football players, if they were in the NFL, they might be able to use marijuana in a year or two. The first time I ever ran across marijuana was a couple years later. I had a Navy scholarship demanding, and I was on board hearing the case of a sailor apprehended smoking pot. And I wrote the dissenting opinion because I thought his penalty was not severe enough. I believed all the bad things about marijuana then. And then I returned to another campus, Indiana University, and was stunned to discover that more than half my classmates were smoking pot. I was terrified. I thought, my God, I'm going to school with a bunch of addicts. I'm going to save them. So I went to the library and I checked out the books on marijuana. I was going to educate them, educate myself, educate them, save them from a life of addiction. And the book said, essentially, all said the same things. You know, kind of a benign substance. So I thought, well, the next time somebody offers me a hit, what you call it, I'll try it. And I tried it, and maybe not the first thought, but the second thought that occurred to me was, this is a bad law. This doesn't make any sense. We are putting people in cages for doing something that's less dangerous than using alcohol. And so I started then working on reforming the marijuana laws. And it's 43 years later, and it's still illegal, but not in 2 states. So we've made more progress in the last probably 20 months than the previous 25, 30 years. Medically, my wife sort of indulged my interest or obsession, I guess, passion for this issue. And then she came down with it turned out very virulent form of breast cancer. So we talked to the oncologist who said, well, you know, we now have medication that's just as good as marijuana for nausea, which we knew is not true. So she did the research herself and said, looks to me like it works better, and you know, the legal stuff was going to be, the insurance company was going to pay for it, the legal stuff was going to be about $10,000, so it just happened I had some marijuana in the house, and probably over the course of 3 different treatments, she only used about $50 worth. She went through an induction round of chemo, no nausea whatsoever, high-dose chemo, which is a brutal procedure, stem cell transplant. We now know that really doesn't work for breast cancer, but back then, this was 15, 16 years ago, that was thought to be state of the art. Then the cancer returned, and she had to go through what turned out to be a final round. And she said, you know, I just smell marijuana now, and it makes me think of chemo. And I thought, oh gosh, I've been doing this around her for months. And she said, I'm going to use the legal Zofran. So she went in, took the treatment, took the Zofran. She came home. She'd been home about 20 minutes. And I can see this. Bring me the damn pot. And one puff, and it was gone. So there is no better medication for the nausea of chemotherapy than marijuana. But let me read something else. Bernie mentioned the National Institute of Cancer. One more thing. This appeared on their website, I think it's August of 2012. The potential benefits of medical marijuana for people living with cancer include antiemetic effects, appetite stimulation, pain relief, improved sleep. In the practice of integrative oncology, the health provider may recommend medical cannabis not only for its symptom management, but also for its possible direct anti-tumor effects. In other words, we now know, and the government's known since 1964, that was the first research, that marijuana stops cancer. It inhibits it. It cures it. We now know that if you're going to smoke tobacco, you're better off smoking marijuana and tobacco, because the government's own research showed that marijuana has a, quote, protective effect against lung cancer. So someday, I guess you can't say people should burn in hell, but I feel pretty strong about this. The government's known for a long time, and they've sat on this research, some of which they funded themselves. It's going on in other countries around the world. But marijuana is not only good for nausea, which I've seen firsthand. The evidence is clear that it stops cancer. So the time has come not only for medical cannabis, but for, I think, for full legalization. And I'm happy that Panels and discussions like this tonight are going to advance that cause. Thank you for coming tonight.